Hello, if you've watched Britain Behind Bars on ITV, you may have seen Tony. Knows how to tell a story. I was gripped, and it's like the camera crew went in there thinking that the guards ran the place. But then they were coming to you like, what's going on here? They're thinking, oh, who is this guy? So we reached out. We've got him on the podcast. Thank you for coming on, Tony.
That's all right, my pleasure.
And how many years have you served in prison?
About 9.5 altogether.
And whereabouts are you from in this country?
I grew up in Feltham, Sunbury-upon-Thames area.
Yeah. And what was that like?
Back then, quite rough. Feltham especially. I mean, Feltham's quite rough now still, but
we had Pepsi Watson on here. He was one of our first ever guests.
Yeah.
He did this story. It was like 30 minutes long about the abuse he suffered at Feltham.
Oh,
and it went viral.
Yeah. Do you know what? I had this conversation already, and back then, I think it was around about 1996. They had the big inquiry about the officers taking bets in their little black books that they found.
Yeah.
Feltham then, it was always said, look, it's one of the roughest young offenders. And I went there, and to be honest, I got on all right there. Then I got sent to Portland. And Portland, for me, was one of the roughest young offenders I ever went to. There was hardly any CCTV. There's blind spots everywhere in the prisons to fight. And that for me was the roughest young offenders I ever went to.
What was your first day in Portland like?
You don't really do a lot because you're on like induction, on the induction wing, and they've got two wings in there called Drake and Riley, and they're like something out of the Stone Ages. And I went on there, and I believe it was the third day I was there, and I went down and got me a bit of cake and custard, and it was really annoying because my cell was at the end of the block, and when
watch the foot tapping.
Oh right, and when you looked out the window, you could see the residential houses. So literally every morning I was watching people going to work, and you'd be like, oh. But yeah, second day in, I think I had two kids come in my cell. And I got the usual spiel, they're nice trainers. Where'd you get them from? And I could see exactly where it's going. So there was a lot of cake and custard on the walls that day. And yeah, I got sent to the block. And I actually got released from segregation from there. The same in Park in Wales. That's another one. That's an experience. Being banged up with Welsh people. They don't like Londoners.
So what is it with the Welsh versus London?
Do you know what? Your guess is as good as mine. But I remember from the minute I got there's about five of us from London that had all been shipped out from various other young offenders for fighting with officers or doing stuff wrong. And this great big Welsh lad decided to give my mate a chicken wing for dinner, and he wasn't happy with the size of it. And my mate come back, and he was only a little fella, and he said, right, what's this? And it was a bit strange in part because when you eat your dinner, you're all outside. It's like a communal area. Whereas in other prisons, you go back to your cells. And he literally run across this hall and he hit this fella in the jaw. And I've never seen a fight like it. The whole prison wanted to kill us. It was literally Wales versus England. And yeah.
I'm just going to go back to then your story chronologically before we weave in all these 10 stories that you've sent me. Just we're going to try and weave them in as they happen.
Yep.
All right. So how did you slip into crime?
It sounds stupid now. It was a natural progression. From where I grew up and the crowd that I was in, there must have been about 20 of us that hung around religiously every day. And it always starts off with petty crime, with stealing motorbikes, with stealing cars. And back then, believe it or not, it was solely for fun. It wasn't for financial gain. On a weekend, a lot of people going out clubbing. I didn't step into a nightclub until I was in my early 20s. It just didn't interest me.
Oh, raving?
No, raving we used to go, but we were so off the nut when we went, you can't really remember it. But we used to get in cars and playing bumper cars. So we'd go and steal about 10 cars, and then the idea was the last car standing won. So you just had to drive up the normal roads and just crash into each other. And we used to have a right laugh doing it.
What neighbourhood was this?
This was 15, 16. And believe it or not, to this day, there is nothing quite like a natural reaction of a member of the public sitting at a set of traffic lights with the kids in the car, and someone sat next to him, and someone does 30 mile an hour into the back of that car sitting next to him, and then they all have a laugh and drive off.
Yeah.
It must be a sight to watch. But that's what it was like back then. You had to amuse yourselves. And it was just a natural progression. You start selling the cars, you start selling the bikes.
Are you on the drugs at this point?
No. I didn't have anything to do with drugs until probably later on in my 20s. Not massively, but obviously they're always around you. You know what it's like. Everywhere you go raving, there's always drugs there. But yeah, it was just a natural progression. And then it sort of goes into, oh, we can earn money out of this. And then it was a case of, you had so many people going around kicking people's doors off and tying people up. And you sort of come to realise that there's a way in which these things are done. And if you can become good at that, you can earn a lot of money.
So you've done a big jump there from bumper cars to violent crime. Yeah. Fill in that gap for us.
So from 15, I'd say from 15 to 18, a lot of it was purely fun. It was for our amusement. The problem with having fun is that the police don't see it as having fun. They see it, they can see where it's going and what it's leading to. And as much as I was told as a teenager, you're going to end up doing this. And at that age, you're like, why would I do that? And but it does. It naturally progresses into more serious offences. By the time I got to 18, 19, I was in my stride. It was drug dealers. It was grows. It was anything that I could earn money out of.
So you're taxing drug dealers? We
was taxing drug dealers. We would rob drug dealers. Anything that I could make money out of, I would do. That was my outlook on it. There was no point in being focused on one particular thing because jobs in that area wouldn't come up all the time. So you had to basically be able to do everything at the drop of a hat. The team that was around me then were very loyal, very dedicated. We could get a phone call and an hour later we could be loaded up and ready to go, and that's the way it was.
So what was your formula for taxing drug dealers? You have someone inside who did a deal first and set them up?
You can do it. A lot of it will come from inside information. So someone would ring up and say, look, we think there's this in the house. We've just dropped this off. Or it could just be that someone's come to us and said, look, this geezer's just bought a Rangy. He's having it off. He's never been robbed before. And you get the details. You may approach him and say, look, we're going to take this much off of you. If you don't, you ain't going to deal no more. So you could get money out of them then on a monthly basis, which in the long run would be more lucrative. But then if someone turned around and said, right, well, there's 4 keys in that house, you're just going to go and take the door off. You're going to bally up, you're going to run in, you're going to take what you want, and you're going to leave. But the difference with us is that me especially, I sort of took note of the old school villains. So there was always a code. That code is null and void now. It doesn't exist. But for me, I tended to listen to the older faces around the area, and there were strict rules with if there was kids in the house, you didn't do it. If there was women in the house, you didn't do it. Fair enough, if it was a girlfriend and they was young, you might make an exception. But if it was an old bird in there or a mum, you just wouldn't do it. And it's sort of the way you roll into a job. You've got one objective. You're not thinking of consequences. You're not thinking of what could go wrong. That's in there. We're going to get it. Basically, it's mine and you've got it. And that was the attitude we had.
So putting a belly on, smashing the door down, grabbing the keys, sounds easy in theory, but things can go wrong.
Oh, loads of things can go wrong.
What went wrong?
Dogs. A lot of dogs, a lot of big dogs.
You got savaged?
Yeah, well, I've never been savage, but you can get a lot. I mean, it's fight or flight. Now, depending on your personality, you can be the hardest geezer on earth. If 4 geezers come through your door, you can sit there with all your mates till the cows come home saying, if someone come through my door, I'd do this, I'd do that. Let me tell you, if I come through your door, you have got about 10 seconds to react. And if you don't react in those 10 seconds, you are getting wrapped up. It's as simple as that. That's the way it is. It happens. It's the same if the old Bill come through your door. You tell me when someone's asleep and the police take the door off, you get time to jump up, get a bat, run downstairs, and they're at the bottom of your bed. Right, mate, you're nicked. And it's no different from going and robbing someone. It's no different from the police coming through your door to a drug dealer coming through your door, or people coming to rob you coming through your door. It's exactly the same.
So give us some stories of things that went wrong.
Oh, things that went wrong. The wrong house. It's quite a normal occurrence. Get in there and it's someone sitting there like, oh, I don't know what you're going on about, mate. And you're like, you're lying. And they're like, we ain't. And it's happened a few times. We've had it where we've gone in and they've been having a party. So you've been told there's one geezer in there, possibly with a couple of his mates. You go through and there's 8, 9, 10 people in there. But by that point, you're committed. So there's no running in and running out, because if you're running away from someone, you're liable to get something stuck in your back. So once you're in and you're committed, you have to gain control of that room as quickly as possible. Okay,
describe slowly how you gain control of that room.
It's being the biggest man in the room. It doesn't matter size-wise. It's being, I wouldn't even say being loud, because I wasn't a big fan. You see all these people going through the doors and they're screaming, get on the floor. You haven't got to do that. A lot of fear comes from calmness, believe it or not. If someone come through my door screaming and hollering, I'd think you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing, you're winging it. But if someone comes through your door and they sit on the end of your bed and they go, listen, mate, this is how it is. They're the ones you need to be worried about, because they've done it a million times over. They can't be fucked to shout. They're just going to tell you how it is. But every job's different. There's no two jobs that are the same. So there's a number of things that can go wrong. There's a number of things that can go wrong once you leave. I know people that have gone and done a big job and it's all gone absolutely smoothly. They get in the van and come out and they get a tug by the old bill. Then you've got ISB pursuit, and then you get a nick with what's in the van. So there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong.
All right, so 10 people in the room, you go in, you weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
How many people were with you?
I'd normally go with in between 2 and 4.
How did you get control of that situation? What was the first thing you said?
Well, the biggest people in the room you go for straight away.
Go for? What do you mean by that?
Well, you've got to grab hold of them. Straight away, you need to put it across as quickly as possible that you're in control. And any ideas that they've got are soon put to bed.
So you and your mates grab the biggest people.
Grab the biggest people.
And what do you say then?
Sit the fuck down. This is what's happening. You can't do nothing about it. So it's either you're all going to get weighed in and you're going to get robbed anyway, or you can all just keep your fucking mouth shut and tell us where the shit is and we'll leave. It saves you getting your house trashed with us looking for it. It saves all of you getting beat up. And that's the easiest way to do it. But again, you don't know how people are going to react.
How did they react?
To be fair, they took it quite well. They all sat down. I think we even had one made us a cup of tea in there. So yeah, you do get ones like that. But I've been in ones before, and you walk through the front door, and they're coming out the windows, out the skylights, trying to get away. So you never know what's going to happen.
Worst thing that ever happened on one of those jobs?
Worst thing that's ever happened? Well, they didn't have no gear. So and
are you believing that they don't have no gear? Are you staying around?
Believe it or not, you come to be very good at reading people. You know when someone's lying to you. So I'm very good at knowing when someone's talking out their arse and when there's not. Now, the thing with shock is that when people go into shock, they either sit there and say nothing, or you can't shut them up. But what they never do is lie to you. It's either we're not telling you, or listen, I'll even help you pack it. It's either one or the other. But you never know what one you're going to get.
All right, so these people then, you're stepping on somebody's toes who's
Yeah.
supplying them the drugs. What happens when it escalates to the boss?
Well, this is what separates your average person to your next level up. So with us, again, I learned from the old school ones from around the area. So if there was ever a dispute, no different from the mafia in America. If you was a made guy and there was another made guy with a problem, you go on a sit down. And then they would make the decision. Over here, it's slightly different, but you still go on a sit down and you air the problem. If you can't come to an arrangement or a solution to that problem, you need to be willing to go further than what they're willing to go. Now, all the senseless killings and stabbings we have in London at the minute, it wasn't like that when I was a kid. There wasn't a lot of people getting stabbed. There wasn't a lot of people being murdered. So if someone's just lost out on 40 grand and they think I've took it, and I go on a sit down and say, well, I don't take it to give it back. This is how it is. If their next step is then going to be, well, you're going to get it. Well, the problem is you're on the meat with us. So you're either going to go in the motor and we'll take you somewhere and convince you otherwise, or you're just going to fucking swallow it. And a lot of the time they swallow because they don't want the headache that comes with it. I mean, we don't involve people's families and things like that, but it gets to a certain point where if someone's coming after you, they don't care about your family. They don't care about your kids. So when you've got, even though I was in the wrong to be doing what I was doing, the minute I think my family's in danger, I'm going to take out whoever is in the way, whether it be your family, your boss, your sister, whoever it is to get to you, I'm going to go through until the situation is sorted. But the way it all pans out, it's a very rare occurrence when it goes to them sort of levels.
Did you target certain distributors to avoid it going to those levels, people who weren't connected?
Yeah, well, in the drug game, it's a very small world. Everyone knows each other. So obviously you would do some sort of homework before you executed the job. So you would know who they're getting it off. And obviously a lot of people tick gear and then sell it and then they owe the dealer the money. Now, if the dealer's got half a brain, when he handed that gear over, he would be telling that person, if you get robbed or you fuck up, don't be coming running to me, you're paying me the money. So it was very rare for the buck to get passed, if that makes sense. It would be their problem and they would have to deal with it. Now, they can spend the next 3 weeks running around calling everyone names, saying they're going to do this, that and the other, or they can just tick some more gear and start paying off the debt, which is what a lot of people do.
How many times did it escalate to the sit-down level?
A few times. It was actually quite funny. I went to a birthday party and we was mingling with all these celebrities and all the rest of it that was there, and we ended up bumping into a Premiership football player. And we was having a cigar out the back, and he introduced us to his younger brother. And it was literally about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call saying that this younger brother had gone to someone's house and they had taken a kilo of coke off someone, and they wanted us to retrieve the debt. So we took the debt on. We said, we know who this person is. We've got ways of getting hold of him. And we rang the Premiership footballer, and his attitude was, fuck you, I ain't doing nothing. And we said, fine, sweet, not a problem. He said, I'm going to get my mate to ring you. He said, and you can sort it out with him. And we're like, all right. So I won't say his name, but I've met him. He's a nice fella, but a very well-known person from Essex around about that time. Jumped on the phone and he was like, we need to go on a meet. We need to sort it out. And the people we took on the meet knew him. So it was kind of, you got to pay the money back. That was it in a nutshell. And I think about 3 days later, the brother decided he was going to drop a bag off with all the money in it. So there's your typical debt collection. It's always on phone calls the majority of the time.
So that one worked out smoothly. Give us one where there were more challenges.
A funny one. One of my best friends. He looked after a fella that was down on his luck. He took him under his wing, and this person had a very bad drinking habit. And this person decided when my mate was out to go to his place and basically rob a large amount of dough out of it. The problem was someone see him running out the gaff because he's pissed out of his head. Unfortunately for him, there was a girl about 3 roads up that had a restraining order on him. And as he's gone bolting down the road with the money, she's seen him and rung the police. So they've obviously flooded the area with police. He's ended up stashing the money, got arrested. So he's now sat in the police station. We've got a phone call off the next door neighbour saying, we see this geezer, give the description. And we ended up picking him up from the police station. And we said, give us the money back and we'll leave it as that. Because we know you're going to get eyed in, but we'll leave it as that. He didn't want to know. That drunk still, this is like nearly 16 hours after he got arrested, absolutely rotten. So he got taken, he got eyed in, he got drowned in a puddle, he got stripped naked. He had a lot of very peculiar things happen to him in the next 3 hours. Still wouldn't give the money up. And in the end, it was to the point of, we're either going to kill him or we're going to have to let him go. Now, you got to be a fucking idiot, kill someone over a bit of dough. And the next morning he woke up, smothered in bruises and fuck knows what else. And he was like, I've got your money, come and get it. And it was like, why don't you do that fucking 4 hours ago and save yourself a world of shit? But that's what you're dealing with some people. That's the way it goes.
All right, so in that profession, you've got to be pretty fearless.
Yeah.
How did you become fearless?
I just think I've got something wrong with me. I think, as my mum would say, you ain't right. I had it from a very early age. If there was a roller coaster, if there was a bungee jump, if there was a new motocross bike, I'd be on it with no helmet. I've just never had fear there. I think it's my brain's way of processing certain things. Like, don't get me wrong, I get fear in certain situations, but with that, I never did. It was always me. I was always the first one through the door. I was always the last one out. It just didn't really bother me. It became natural after a way, no different from a normal person going to work and doing their 9 till 5.
Was there a point in that profession where they tried to kidnap you or come to your house?
First time that happened, I was 15. I was going out with someone and I got banged up. And I come out and this person had been sleeping around with someone, or I found out about it. And we ended up going to the person's house and having murders and all the rest of it. And it ended up, I pulled out of my mum's old flat. 2 geezers jumped out of a car, balaclavaed up, shooters, come to the door, put the window through, dragged me out, and I got stun gunned in the neck with a cattle prod.
How's that feel?
Not very good. And shocking it is. And he put it in my neck and it must have knocked me out. and I think I come to him between the two vehicles. They stun gun me again. I came round again and I was in the back of their car, and I managed to push off of the bottom of the car, headbutt the geezer that had hold of me, and run across the dual carriageway. Bearing in mind I'm only 15, and these were two big geezers. And the police come. I refused to give a statement, refused to get involved, and then I had a phone call from another well-known villain in London, and I was asked to go to his house, so I went. And basically it was, look, you kept your mouth shut. This is a bit of dough for you. Like, we're not going to say any more about it. But that was my first experience of that side of it. And I made it my will in life to never put myself in a position where that could happen. And even though I'm completely away from it now, and I have been for years, even if I walk into a restaurant, even if I walk into a house, I'm noticing straight away where the doors are, where the blind spots are. If you just naturally do it, it's just built into my brain. You can't get around it.
Sitting with your back to the wall.
Yeah, always see the entrance and the exit.
Yeah, I walked in a room where the New Mexican Mafia in Arizona had a guy hogtied, and they were cattle prodding him. He was like naked, and just every time they did it, piss just shot out of his dick. Oh,
yeah.
Scary shit.